The Smithsonian's most secure archive wasn't marked on any map. It existed in a quantum-locked subbasement, 3 levels beneath what most humans believed was the museum's lowest point. Dr. Elena Rodriguez moved with the practiced ease of someone who knew every centimeter of this forbidden space, her augmented retinal implants scanning the chamber's intricate security grid. Today was supposed to be a routine diplomatic tour, standard procedure for first contact protocols. The Orion Stellar Consortium's delegation would see carefully curated exhibits, sanitized historical displays that revealed nothing of humanity's true potential. Elena knew the script by heart. Show enough to intrigue, hide everything that truly mattered. Krelltax was different. The alien ambassador moved with a predatory grace that belied his insectoid appearance. Compound eyes that shifted like liquid mercury swept across displays, taking in information far beyond what his official briefing suggested. His translator, a biomechanical marvel of linguistics and quantum computing, hung from his thorax, clicking softly with each translation. Fascinating, Krelltax murmured, his mandibles clicking in a pattern that Elena's implant translated as a mix of curiosity and barely concealed contempt. Your species seems so primitive, yet your museum curation suggests layers of complexity. Elena's hand twitched imperceptibly. A neural link connected her to the archive's security systems. One thought could lock down the entire facility, vaporize sensitive materials, or trigger a response that would make the alien delegation's worst nightmares seem like pleasant dreams. The tour guide, a carefully selected diplomatic attaché named Michael Chen, continued his rehearsed narrative. We believe in preserving history, not just our achievements, but our potential failures as well. Krelltax's head tilted at an impossible angle. The movement was too precise, too calculated to be casual. Failures. A holographic display flickered to life. Seemingly random. Definitely not part of the planned tour. Schematics of Cold War-era weapon designs. Theoretical physics research that had been shelved decades ago. Quantum entanglement studies that pushed the boundaries of what most species would consider possible. Michael's smile never wavered, but a bead of sweat formed at his temple, not from fear. From the knowledge of what could happen if the wrong information was revealed. Elena knew the display was no accident. The quantum-locked security systems should have prevented any unauthorized access. Yet here was a holographic projection that could not, exist. Her neural implants ran 1,000 diagnostic scenarios in the span of a heartbeat. Krelltax moved closer to the display. His translator began to process the complex mathematical equations and technical specifications faster than any human could comprehend. Theoretical molecular destabilization research, the alien muttered. Abandoned in 1987. Michael's rehearsed script faltered. Our scientists are always exploring theoretical boundaries. But Krelltax was no longer listening. His multiple eyes had locked onto a specific set of equations, calculations that suggested the potential to unravel the fundamental atomic structure of entire planetary systems. Something was wrong. Elena's hand hovered near the emergency containment protocol. One touch could seal the entire archive, erase every digital trace, trigger failsafes that would make this entire encounter nothing more than a diplomatic footnote. The emergency alarm waited, a quantum-locked sentinel ready to respond. Krelltax turned, his movement deliberate. Calculating. You have no idea what you're showing me, do you? Elena's response was calm. Cold. We show exactly what we want you to see. The moment stretched. Tension crackled like static electricity. Outside the archive, the rest of the delegation continued their sanitized tour. Displays of human achievement, cultural artifacts, the story humanity wanted to tell. In this hidden chamber, a different story was about to unfold. A story of potential, of restraint, of weapons never created, of humanity's most dangerous secret. The moment hung suspended, like a quantum probability wave waiting to collapse. Deep beneath the Smithsonian, the weapon design continued to project. A holographic masterpiece of destructive potential, It wasn't a massive cannon or a planet cracker, but something far more insidious. A quantum-entangled molecular disruptor small enough to fit in a briefcase, yet capable of unraveling an entire planetary ecosystem in less time than it took to draw a breath. Krilltax's biomechanical translator began to break down the equations with terrifying speed. Each line of code, each mathematical representation became a living thing, a predatory concept that threatened to consume everything in its path. "Impossible," he muttered, mandibles clicking with a rhythm that suggested both horror and grudging respect. Alina's augmented eyes tracked every microscopic movement. The neural link embedded at the base of her skull ran continuous threat assessments. Multiple scenarios played out in her mind: containment protocols, diplomatic counter-strategies, potential conflict simulations. Michael Chen stood perfectly still. To the untrained eye, he appeared calm. But Alina could see the microscopic muscle tensions, the nearly imperceptible electromagnetic pulse of stress radiating from his body. "Impossible is humanity's specialty," Alina said, her voice a razor's edge of controlled calm. The holographic display continued to rotate, revealing layers of scientific genius that defied conventional understanding. It wasn't just a weapon design. It was a mathematical symphony of destruction. Each equation a note, each calculation a harmonious threat. Krilltax's additional sensory organs, biological appendages that extended far beyond human perception, began to map the holographic data. Quantum entanglement calculations that suggested methods of molecular destabilization previously thought impossible. Theoretical research that had been shelved, forgotten, deliberately hidden. This technology could unmake entire star systems, the alien whispered, more to himself than to the humans present. A hidden camera tracked every moment. Not the museum's security system. Something far more sophisticated. Every microscopic twitch, every subtle movement was being recorded, analyzed, stored in databases that existed beyond traditional computational frameworks. Alina knew the true power wasn't in the weapon itself. It was in humanity's choice not to create it. The holographic display began to shift. Layers of scientific research peeled back like the petals of a dangerous flower. Theoretical physics research from the 1980s. Quantum mechanics studies that had been deliberately obscured. Calculations that suggested methods of planetary reconstruction as easily as planetary destruction. Michael's neural implant sent a silent communication to Alina. A warning. A preparation. Something was about to happen. Krilltax's translator began to overheat, unable to process the complex mathematical and scientific information being displayed. Smoke began to curl from its biomechanical components, a literal manifestation of an intelligent system being pushed beyond its designed limitations. "Your species," Krilltax said, his voice a mixture of fear and fascination, "understands destruction at a level that terrifies me." Alina's response was immediate. Cold. Calculated. "We understand destruction," she corrected, "so that we can choose not to create it." A holographic display began to fragment. Not a malfunction. A deliberate deconstruction. Pieces of scientific potential scattered like digital dust, revealing nothing and everything simultaneously. Hidden failsafes triggered. Quantum encryption algorithms began to erase the most sensitive data, leaving behind only carefully curated fragments of scientific potential. Michael's hand moved almost imperceptibly. A neural trigger. A containment protocol waiting to be activated. Krilltax realized, in that moment, that humanity was playing a game far more complex than simple technological warfare. This was psychological warfare at its most refined. A demonstration of potential. A warning. We could destroy everything. But we choose not to. The weapon design faded. The holographic display collapsed into itself, leaving behind only a momentary imprint of scientific potential. A museum piece. A warning. A promise. Humanity's most dangerous weapon was never its technology. It was its capacity to understand. and then choose restraint. The Orion Stellar Consortium's War Council chamber erupted into controlled chaos. Holographic displays flickered with intercepted data from the Earth Museum encounter. Each transmission, each fragment of information sent cascading waves of terror through the most sophisticated intelligence network in known space. Admiral Zarak slammed her tentacular appendage on the bioreactive briefing table. The surface rippled with her impact, changing color from a calm azure to a violent crimson. "Impossible," she hissed, her universal translator struggling to capture the nuanced rage in her native language. 12 species represented, hundreds of years of collective galactic exploration, and none had ever encountered a civilization that so casually stored planet-killing potential like historical artifacts. "The humans are not what we believed," said Consul Rickstall, a crystalline being whose molecular structure shifted with emotional response. His form flickered between translucent and opaque, a visible manifestation of his internal conflict. The intercepted data told a story far more terrifying than any direct military threat. Humanity didn't just understand destruction. They understood it so completely that they could file it away and forget about it. Intelligence reports began to flood in, not just from the museum encounter, but from decades of carefully hidden human research. Quantum entanglement studies that suggested faster-than-light communication methods. Theoretical molecular reconstruction techniques that could rebuild entire planetary ecosystems. And weapons. So many potential weapons. "We have 3 primary concerns," announced Chief Strategist Kelmera, her holographic projection splitting into multiple analytical streams. First, their technological potential. Second, their apparent lack of interest in using said potential. Third, and most critically, their psychological profile. The chamber went silent. Psychological warfare had always been the consortium's primary method of galactic control. Intimidation, strategic positioning, the subtle art of making potential threats feel insignificant. Humanity had just reversed that entire paradigm. On another display, footage from the museum played again. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Michael Chen, Krelltax, each movement analyzed, reanalyzed, deconstructed at the quantum level. "They're studying us as much as we're studying them," muttered a junior intelligence analyst, a comment quickly suppressed by senior officials, but no less true. The weapon design from the museum continued to haunt their analysis. Not a traditional weapon of mass destruction, but something far more insidious, a theoretical construct that suggested humanity could unmake and remake fundamental planetary structures. Admiral Zarak's tactical mind ran thousands of scenario simulations. Each one ended the same way, with human victory through means that defied traditional military understanding. "This isn't about weapons," she said finally, her voice cutting through the cascading holographic data. "This is about potential." Consul Rickstall's crystalline form pulsed in agreement. "They're showing us exactly what they want us to see, and what they're showing is terrifying." Deep in the most secure communication networks, encrypted channels began to buzz with activity. Entire fleet movements were being reconsidered, strategic alliances reevaluated. Humanity had become an unknown variable. And in the universe of the Orion Stellar Consortium, unknown variables were the most dangerous thing imaginable. The museum weapon design continued to rotate on the holographic display, a silent warning, a mathematical promise of potential destruction that would never be realized. Not because humanity couldn't, but because they chose not to. The War Council continued its emergency session. Outside the chamber, entire star systems remained unaware that the fundamental understanding of galactic power had just been rewritten. One museum, one encounter, one civilization that understood the true nature of power was not in its expression, but in its restraint. Humanity had just entered the galactic stage, and nothing would ever be the same again. The converted Cold War bunker beneath the Smithsonian looked nothing like a traditional military command center. Vintage wood paneling lined walls that concealed the most advanced quantum computing systems ever conceived. Soft lighting illuminated holographic displays that could reconfigure entire strategic models in milliseconds. General Marcus Reyes moved with the measured grace of a predator. At 70, he was a living archive of human strategic potential. Cybernetic augmentations integrated seamlessly with his body, not to enhance physical strength, but to process information at speeds that would make most AI systems look primitive. "They're predictable," he muttered, tracing potential conflict scenarios on a holographic map that spanned three-dimensional space. Around him, a team of retired military strategists, scientists, and diplomatic experts worked in perfect synchronization. No verbal communication needed. Neural networks linked their thoughts, creating a collective intelligence that was more than the sum of its parts. Dr. Aria Chen, no relation to the museum tour guide, studied quantum entanglement patterns that mapped potential alien response scenarios. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces, each movement triggering complex predictive algorithms. "First response will be reconnaissance," she said, her voice calm. "Not a prediction, a statement of fact." The bunker was more than a command center. It was humanity's true first line of defense, not with weapons, but with understanding. Each museum exhibit was a message, each theoretical weapon design a warning. A massive holographic display showed the Orion Stellar Consortium's current fleet movements, not from external intelligence, from data the aliens believed was completely secure. "They're scared," General Reyes said, zooming into a specific sector. "Fear makes civilizations predictable." Dr. Chen's neural implants ran simultaneous probability matrices. Thousands of potential scenarios played out in microseconds. Each one mapped, analyzed, categorized. "Probability of direct military conflict," she announced, "is 0.03%. Probability of diplomatic escalation, 87.6%. Probability of covert technological probing, 99.2%. The team didn't react. They were beyond surprise. A secondary display showed the museum encounter from multiple perspectives. Krell Tax's movements, Elena Rodriguez's micro-expressions, the holographic weapon display, each moment analyzed at the quantum level. "It's not about the weapon," Marcus said, more to himself than anyone else. "It's about the potential." The bunker represented humanity's true technological marvel, not the weapons they could create, but the ability to understand every possible outcome before a single shot was fired. Quantum computing systems mapped diplomatic scenarios faster than any alien intelligence could comprehend. Machine learning algorithms developed by minds that understood the fundamental nature of conflict predicted responses before they were even conceived. Dr. Chen's latest analysis began to take shape, a diplomatic response so complex, so multi-layered, that it would make traditional galactic politics look like a children's game. "They'll probe our technological capabilities," she said. "They'll test our diplomatic responses." General Reyes smiled, a predator's smile. "Let them try." The holographic displays began to shift. Potential scenarios mapped out with mathematical precision, not just military responses, diplomatic strategies, economic implications, technological exchanges that would reshape galactic understanding. Humanity's true weapon was never technological superiority. It was the capacity to understand conflict so completely that conflict became mathematically illogical. A communication alert pinged. Encrypted. Multiple layers of quantum security. The Orion Stellar Consortium was making its first move, and humanity was already 10 steps ahead. The bunker hummed with potential energy, not the potential of destruction, but the potential of understanding, of choice, of a civilization that could destroy everything, but chose not to. The alien Black Ops team moved with a precision that would have terrified most species. Quantum-shielded exosuits, molecular adaptive camouflage, neural link communication systems that made traditional encryption look like children's whispers. They were the Orion Stellar Consortium's most advanced infiltration unit. Sigma-7, a team that had dismantled civilizations without firing a single weapon. Commander Raltok reviewed the mission parameters one final time. The objective was clear. Retrieve the weapon designs from the Smithsonian. Neutralize any human resistance. Assess the true technological potential of this unknown species. What they didn't know was that Elena Rodriguez was waiting. The museum's defensive systems came alive, not with traditional weapons, but with something far more dangerous: information. Adaptive countermeasures that turned the aliens' own technological advantages against them. The first breach point was a seemingly innocuous display of Cold War-era communication equipment. Raltok's lead infiltrator, a biomechanical specialist named Zex, approached with quantum-enhanced scanning systems. Nothing could have prepared them for what happened next. The display came alive, not as a static exhibit, but as a living, adaptive technological nightmare. Quantum-entangled data streams began to probe the infiltration team's communication systems. Not to block, not to jam, to understand. Zex's molecular adaptive camouflage began to destabilize. Quantum signatures that should have been invisible suddenly became blindingly clear. The team's neural link communication network started to unravel from within. Impossible, Raltok hissed into the team's communication channel. But impossibility was humanity's specialty. Each museum exhibit became a weapon, not through destruction, through information, through understanding. The infiltration team found their stealth technology rendering them visible. Their own communication systems became conduits for counterintelligence, adaptive algorithms that learned faster than the team could respond. Deep beneath the museum, in a quantum-locked control room, Elena Rodriguez watched the infiltration unfold, not with fear, not with aggression, with clinical precision. Her neural implants ran simultaneous threat assessments. Predictive algorithms mapped out every possible response, every potential countermove. The museum itself had become a living intelligence. Zex's molecular scanning equipment began to feed back information, not just about the museum's exhibits, about humanity's potential. Layers of scientific research, theoretical weapon designs that had been deliberately filed away. Warnings, not threats. One by one, the infiltration team found their most advanced technologies becoming useless. Quantum-shielded exosuits began to malfunction. Adaptive camouflage systems revealed their true forms. They were being studied, analyzed, understood. Raltok realized the true nature of the infiltration too late. This wasn't a traditional defensive response. This was a comprehensive intelligence-gathering operation that used the infiltrators' own technologies against them. Retreat, he commanded. But the command itself became a data stream, analyzed, mapped, understood. The museum's defensive systems weren't blocking their technology. They were learning from it. Elena's neural link captured every microscopic detail, every quantum signature, every technological nuance of the infiltration attempt. By the time the team realized they were compromised, they had already become the most comprehensive intelligence report the Orion Stellar Consortium had ever unknowingly produced. One by one, the infiltration team's advanced technologies became paperweights. Their stealth systems rendered them completely visible. Their communication networks became open books, not through force, through understanding. As the last infiltrator's systems failed, a holographic display flickered to life. Not a weapon, not a threat. A message. "We could have destroyed you," the display read. "We chose to understand you instead." The museum returned to silence. The exhibits resumed their passive displays. Nothing had changed. Everything had changed. The first wave of alien warships approached Earth's orbit like predators stalking wounded prey. 3 massive vessels, each a testament to the Orion Stellar Consortium's technological might. Quantum-shielded hulls, molecular disruptor cannons, advanced sensor arrays that could map entire planetary systems in microseconds. They never saw the response coming. Admiral Kira Yoshida watched from the Terran Defense Command's primary control center. A network of quantum-linked neural interfaces surrounded her, each displaying a different layer of strategic information. No traditional screens. No physical controls. Just pure, adaptive intelligence. Incoming, she said. Not a warning. A statement of fact. The alien fleet's advance was textbook. Precise. Calculated. Designed to intimidate. To demonstrate overwhelming technological superiority. They would learn. Humanity's defensive systems came alive. Not with traditional weapons. Not with missile barrages or energy shields. With pure, calculated intelligence. The first ship's quantum communications began to fragment. Not through jamming. Through complete, comprehensive understanding. The ship's own communication protocols became conduits for counterintelligence. Adaptive algorithms that learned faster than the ship's defensive systems could respond. Interesting, Admiral Yoshida muttered. One by one, the alien vessels found themselves caught in a web of quantum-entangled communication disruptions. Navigation systems twisted. Weapon arrays became self-targeting nightmares. Each ship's most advanced technology turned into a liability. The vessels didn't crash. They didn't explode. They simply stopped functioning. Chief Tactical Analyst Dr. Marcus Chen tracked the progression with clinical precision. Neutralization complete, he announced. 0 human casualties. 0 direct weapon discharge. In less than 17 minutes, the most advanced strike force in the Orion Stellar Consortium became a floating museum piece of its own failure. Admiral Yoshida's neural interface displayed the comprehensive analysis, not just of the ship's technological failures, but of the psychological impact. Every quantum signal, every microscopic communication fragment, mapped, understood, analyzed. The demonstration wasn't about destruction. It was about comprehension. Deep within the Terran Defense Command, a team of scientists and strategists watched the encounter unfold, not with excitement, not with fear, with the calm of those who had already calculated every possible outcome. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now serving as a primary strategic advisor, studied the quantum signatures of the encounter. Each disruption was a message, not a threat. A warning. We could, her analysis suggested, but we won't. The alien fleet hung in space, disabled, not destroyed. Their crews alive. Their vessels intact. A message more powerful than any weapon. Admiral Yoshida's neural interface began compiling the comprehensive intelligence report, not just of the technological encounter, but of the psychological warfare that had just been waged. The Orion Stellar Consortium had come to demonstrate superiority. They had demonstrated something far more terrifying. Humanity's capacity to understand conflict so completely that conflict became mathematically illogical. 17 minutes. No weapons fired. An entire advanced strike force neutralized. Not through force. Through understanding. As the disabled ships drifted, a single transmission emerged from Terran Defense Command. Encrypted, multi-layered, quantum secured. A message to the Orion Stellar Consortium. We are not your enemy, it read. We are simply something you do not yet understand. The solar system returned to silence. Everything had changed. Nothing had moved. Humanity had just redefined the nature of conflict in the galaxy. The United Nations General Assembly transformed into something unprecedented. No traditional podium. No static speeches. A dynamic, holographic space where representatives from Earth and the Orion Stellar Consortium existed simultaneously. A quantum-linked diplomatic arena that defied traditional communication barriers. Ambassador Kreltak stood at the center of a holographic projection, his insectoid form flickering with barely contained emotion. Beside him, Dr. Elena Rodriguez represented humanity, not as a military strategist, not as a weapon designer, but as a curator of potential. You could have destroyed us 100 times over, Kreltak said, his translator rendering his words with a mix of fear and grudging respect. But you chose this. The this was more than a diplomatic proposal. It was a comprehensive plan for interstellar cooperation that would reshape galactic politics. A strategy so complex it made traditional diplomacy look like children's games. Holographic displays shifted, revealing layers of potential collaboration. Not just technological exchanges, but a fundamental reimagining of interspecies interaction. Dr. Rodriguez's neural interface processed thousands of potential scenarios with each breath. Her presentation wasn't a traditional diplomatic document. It was a living, adaptive framework that responded to diplomatic nuances in real time. Destruction is easy, she began. Understanding is complex. The holographic displays began to populate. Theoretical scientific collaborations, quantum communication network designs, ecosystem restoration protocols for multiple planetary systems. Each proposal was a mathematical symphony of potential cooperation. The Orion Stellar Consortium representatives watched in stunned silence. This wasn't a treaty. This was a complete reconstruction of galactic paradigms. Consul Rikstal, the crystalline being whose molecular structure had always been a perfect metaphor for diplomatic fragility, found his form stabilizing. The traditional fear-based diplomatic models were collapsing. Something new was emerging. Your museums, Kreltak said, are not repositories of history. They are archives of potential. Elena's smile was subtle, calculated. The diplomatic proposal unfolded like a living organism, adaptive, responsive. Each potential conflict scenario mapped and neutralized before it could even form. Technological exchanges that would benefit multiple species. Scientific collaborations that transcended traditional resource competition. Quantum-linked neural interfaces allowed instantaneous translation, but more importantly, instantaneous understanding. Not just of language, of intent, of potential. We are offering more than cooperation, Dr. Rodriguez explained. We are offering a fundamental reimagining of interstellar relationships. The holographic displays showed something unprecedented. Not territorial maps, not resource allocation models, but comprehensive ecosystem restoration plans, scientific research frameworks, educational exchange programs that would span multiple star systems. The Orion Stellar Consortium representatives realized they were witnessing something more than a diplomatic encounter. They were seeing the birth of a new galactic paradigm. Kreltak's translator struggled to capture the complexity of the moment. Traditional diplomatic languages were insufficient. This was beyond negotiation, beyond treaty-making. This was mutual understanding elevated to an art form. Each proposal was a mathematical equation of cooperation. Each diplomatic suggestion, a quantum probability of mutual advancement. The traditional zero-sum game of interstellar politics was being rewritten in real time. We do not seek to conquer, Elena said. We seek to understand. The holographic displays continued to shift. Adaptive, responsive. A living document of potential cooperation that responded to diplomatic nuances in milliseconds. The museum weapon designs that had started this entire encounter were now revealed for what they truly were. Not threats, not potential destruction, but warnings. Warnings of what could happen if species failed to understand one another. Consul Rikstal's crystalline form began to pulse with a new energy. Fear was being replaced by something else. Something more complex, more profound. Curiosity, understanding, potential. The diplomatic encounter continued, not as a traditional negotiation, but as a quantum-linked exploration of what could be. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, and nothing would ever be the same again. 5 years after the museum encounter, the transformation was complete. Museums across Earth began to change. No longer just repositories of past conflicts, they became living documents of humanity's most profound lesson. Each exhibit now told a story not of destruction, but of potential, of choice. The Interstellar Collaborative Research Center stood where the Smithsonian's most secure archive had once been, a monument to understanding rather than conflict. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked through the main hall, her neural implants tracking the thousands of collaborative research projects now spanning multiple star systems. What had begun as a tense diplomatic encounter had reshaped the entire galactic political landscape. Krell, no longer just an ambassador, but now the primary liaison for interspecies scientific collaboration, met her at the central atrium. His insectoid form had been subtly modified, cybernetic enhancements allowing for more nuanced communication with human researchers. "Remarkable," he said, his translator capturing both scientific precision and emotional nuance. "5 years ago, we saw you as a potential threat. Now we're partners," Elena finished. The center was a living testament to humanity's true potential. Quantum communication networks that allowed instantaneous knowledge transfer, ecosystem restoration projects that spanned multiple planetary systems, scientific collaborations that dissolved the traditional boundaries of species, technology, and understanding. Each floor told a different story of cooperation. Xenobiologists worked alongside molecular engineers. Planetary restoration experts collaborated with quantum physicists. The traditional siloed approach to scientific research had been completely dismantled. In the central museum hall, the weapon designs that had started everything remained on display. Not as threats, not as historical curiosities, as warnings of what could happen if species failed to understand one another. "Your museums," Krell said, a phrase he had repeated many times, "are not repositories of history. They are archives of potential." The Orion Stellar Consortium had been fundamentally transformed. What was once a militaristic federation of species was now a collaborative research network. The zero-sum game of interstellar politics had been completely rewritten. Holographic displays tracked ongoing collaborative projects, quantum communication networks that allowed instantaneous knowledge transfer, ecosystem restoration initiatives that demonstrated the power of collective understanding. Admiral Kira Yoshida, now head of the Interstellar Collaborative Research Initiative, reviewed the latest project reports. No more military assessments. No more threat matrices. Just pure, potential-driven scientific exploration. The weapon designs that had once terrified the Orion Stellar Consortium now served as a reminder. A philosophical anchor point for an entirely new approach to interstellar relations. "We could have destroyed everything," the exhibit's primary display read. "We chose to understand instead." Junior researchers from multiple species moved through the halls. Humans, crystalline beings like Rickstall, insectoid species similar to Krell. The traditional boundaries of species, technology, and understanding had dissolved. Elena's neural implants tracked the comprehensive data, collaborative research projects, technological exchanges, cultural understanding initiatives. This was humanity's true weapon. Not destruction. Understanding. As the sun set outside, casting long shadows through the center's quantum reactive glass walls, Elena reflected on the journey. A single museum encounter had reshaped galactic understanding. A moment of potential had become a fundamental transformation. Krell approached, his form shifting with what could only be described as anticipation. "The next collaborative project," he said, "requires a unique approach." Elena smiled. The universe was waiting, and humanity had just begun to explore its true potential. The museum stood as a testament, not to what could be destroyed, but to what could be created. When understanding became the most powerful force in the universe,